You're listening to Becoming CEO, where we share our journeys as solo founders to becoming the CEO of seven-figure businesses.
And these are our behind-the-scenes conversations as we figure it out. And these are things that most people just aren't sharing.
I don't know about you, but I'm in a season right now where we're looking at a lot of data and we're making lots of decisions. To be frank, we're about a month late on Q3 planning. so our Q3 planning is starting in August.
Yeah, in Q3. Typically, that's done before the quarter starts.
Yeah. That's advisable.
Yeah. So we're in a similar spot. Maybe in some regards, a few steps ahead on having made some decisions, which happy to talk about. But for those watching, I'm just going to caveat two things. One, I'm getting off of a double pink eye. So I don't need to hear it in the comments. What the hell happened? Did you get in a fight? I did not get in a fight. I have two kids that go to daycare and I have double pink eye thanks to them.
That's worse than a fight.
Worse than a fight. Secondly, I will acknowledge your biceps look amazing. Your bicep is just
wow. Okay.
I mean,
I was not ready for that.
I know. Well, I mean,
you're making me shy.
They were. Your sleeves were all like rolled up. So just kudos to the outside the office effort on the old biceps. Moving on. I digress.
Now all the podcast listeners are like, I got to get on video and see this guy's pink eye and biceps.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just don't make it into a meme, which I just totally invited. If you had to kind of encapsulate why, there's clearly these decisions have maybe they're big decisions, strategic decisions, I'm guessing, which have kind of led to the delay in planning. Like, why do we not have a concrete plan? Because some of these vision, strategic direction changes probably will inform the plan, I'm guessing, because that's what we encountered. So what are you able to share?
So I think for me, the challenge is I don't know that I've felt this challenged before with this. This almost feels new. And I think I know why. Let me try to explain why. I think in the past, the problem or the bottleneck has always been pretty evident. It's always been like a pretty kind of glaring issue. And that we can point to and say, yeah, right now, that's the thing. That's the problem. Let's focus our energy, attention, resources on that thing. And today, it's not that obvious. Like, things are generally going well, right? And I wouldn't say we're where we want to be for the system as a whole, but there's no like one issue that's just completely jumping out and screaming at us and saying this is the thing to focus on. And and at the same time, you can't solve for everything, right? And so when quantitatively there's no obvious thing to focus on, then you get into this qualitative analysis that becomes subjective. And I think part of the challenge is I hate subjectivity. I want it to be clear. Like I'm a recovering accountant, right? Like the numbers have to add up, right? And if I can't, quantifiably, this is my bias. If I can't quantifiably justify a decision, I don't feel good about the decision. Which is, that's there should be a way to qualitatively justify decisions. I'm just not very good at it, and that's kind of where I get stuck.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like in an episode or two ago, we kind of talked about a little bit of this, of like the what's happening behind the numbers. And I can speak for myself in that, like I could totally look at, hey, how much are we spending on ads? And, KPI is, in check. Hey, cost per lead is a little bit high, but like we're getting calls. Like all those things could be in KPI, yet something still felt wrong. And we've made some recent decisions to like simplify our team and structure, pull back on some ads and clean up a handful of things that, like, if you looked at just data, you could easily argue that that was not a good move. Um, but when the vision or the direction is a little bit unclear, that might might justify, hey, while that's performing pretty well, we might not need it or want it for where we're going next. It doesn't matter how it's performing, like, because it's not necessarily going to get me to where I'm going. Like, it's working based on the old objectives. And so for me, I've found that, like, the one of the common jokes I've made, which is stolen from some other mentors, like, you can make your business look really good on a spreadsheet. Like, I could design a $10 million business on a spreadsheet, but, like, when it comes to executing it, it's entirely different. And it's like, is that even the business that you want? Which, if I'm being honest, that was the question that I've been asking. Like, is the model the one that I want? Is the way I'm fulfilling and executing on the model the way that I want? And, we had shared a conversation uh one on one where it's like, some of that's still a little bit too foggy for me, even before the pink eye and everything was foggy. Like, some of that was still too foggy, that, like, the stress and anxiety that came from, I'm trying to manage this machine that's performing on KPI. Any decision I make would derail that engine. And so I just kept delaying the decision. I kept delaying the time to think about it because I had to keep this thing running, or else I'd blow the whole thing up. And so, like, I had to just stop the motor for a minute to kind of get some clarity on that. And by a minute, it's probably going to be multiple months of, like, quote unquote, figuring this out. So, like, that's why I feel like what you're saying, like, I resonate, because maybe it's a vision, strategic. What do I want? Why am I feeling this way? Because we've been, as I've shared, we've been stuck at the same level for a while, and we've tried a lot of different things executionally. And it's like, at what point do I have to ask myself, am I building something that I might not be enjoying? And that's the fundamental reason why we haven't pushed through this barrier. And now I'm just giving myself time to think through that.
So let me ask you this: when you're confronted with these decisions, and this is a major decision that you made recently,
Mhm.
what's your strategy to make the decision? Are you looking at lots of data? Are you taking time alone? Are you meditating on a mountain? Like, what are you doing
All of the above. I'm just kidding.
at once?
Uh, yeah, all at once. Meditating while looking at data. That seems not possible. Um, so I think there's a few, like, in the moment type things that I've done recently, but also a lot of it has come from, what do they say? You can't connect the dots forward. So, like, looking back to the point I just made, we've relatively been in the same spot for, like, within a few $100,000 of each other the last 3 years. And when I look at,
I'm laughing at how cavalier you are about within a few $100,000. For a lot of people, that's a big variance.
yes, yes, yes. So, but, like, yeah, to 2 to 300,000 off, plus or minus, we've been kind of in that window. Um, and we've tried different things. Um, and we, like, it's like we did what was we kept doing more of what was working, and we even dabbled with new things that we thought were missing, that were preventing us from getting there. And so, between looking at all of the things that we had done the last few years, what the team looked like at these different numbers, where we were investing, team wise, ads, etc., to then the more recent stuff that we've been doing, which was, we've been literally in the trenches, interviewing and having conversations with every single client, looking at every single inbound application, matching for the last 12 months, matching that against we have this onboarding, like the clients go through like a video ask campaign where they're like, hey, here's where I was at, here's what made me finally pull the trigger, here's what I'm looking forward to and what I want to accomplish. So we took application last 12 months to every single new onboarding script video that we've received, and we started overlapping that data. And like, again, a lot of that's qualitative, looking for trends in words. And one of the big ahas was the promise and the things that we were saying in our marketing did not align with what we say in the sales conversation, and did not align with even what the clients are saying they actually want from us in working with us. And so there was this massive misalignment with market message to what the clients actually decided to come to us for and what they hope for out of the work together. And once we saw that, we're like, okay, we have this messaging exercise we need to do, which I went through, which took 8 weeks, uh, while all of this machine is still running. And I'm sitting here realizing just how many things are going to need to be changed. Like the number of lead magnets we have, the number of landing pages, the number of emails that are all saying the wrong thing fundamentally, that need to be rewritten, redone, that all have, at the time, 15 grand a month of ad spend going towards, with, multiple contractors supporting. It's like changing this while all of this is running is going to be a disaster. Like, I need to like clean a lot of this up. Some of this stuff doesn't even need to exist anymore. And so when I realized the upcoming effort that was going to be required, in tandem with me feeling like some of this was just misaligned in the first place, like I told you, like I had to simplify the team. So we removed, and there's a little bit of a transition. So like at the time of recording, like they're still here, but they're done soon. Like media buyer is gone. I'm taking that on in-house with a very minimal ad spend. Copywriter's gone. Sales guy is transitioning out just because there's not enough volume to support a commission-only salesperson. So like our expenses are also going down significantly, but I'm going to have the space to now go do some of these things without having to try to maintain this engine. So like it was kind of a culmination of all of these things, and I was desperately trying to figure out how to do it while the whole engine was running. But when I was like, man, our message to market fit for the clients that we have that we love is totally misaligned. And part of it, when I'm like, oh man, when we roll out this new messaging, I know that I'll feel more excited about what we offer and who we're talking to. But that wasn't happening with trying to maintain this engine. And so I think in many ways, like I'm starting over from how do I test the new message to market fit? And I want to be as nimble and agile as possible, because as you know, when you sell as the owner, you can make up stuff on the fly. But now only few people are impacted versus this whole engine that needs to maintain in order to keep everyone, hitting their targets. And so it wasn't any one thing. It was kind of connecting the dots, going through these exercises that we identified were the problem from the data, that then led to this needs to slow down in order for me to clean it up in order to then accelerate. And one ayahuasca trip. I'm just kidding.
It reminds me of this concept in it's a great book called Tinker Doodle Dabble Try by I think a Harvard trained psychologist, and the book's about the power of the
super difficult read. You gave me that one, as the first few chapters are brutal.
Yeah, well, I didn't finish it, but one concept he talks about in this book, I think the word he uses is motivational storms. Might have been a different frame, but the basic concept is, and this comes out of research in public health that was done
Hmm.
to look at, what made people make big life-changing decisions like quitting smoking, things like that.
Mm,
And what they found was it wasn't just like one dramatic event. It wasn't just like, they had a coughing fit and then that moment they decided I'm never going to smoke. No, it wasn't like that. It was a series of events, uh, experiences, data points, feelings, frustrations that like coalesced into this motivational storm and then eventually get kind of hit, critical mass, where the storm kind of picked up enough speed or
right.
power to force a decision. And when you were talking, that's kind of what it reminded me of, right? It's like it's not like one thing happened to make you make a fairly drastic move. It was a whole bunch of things that came together and ultimately sparked this decision. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, totally. And what's funny is obviously the second that I realized I needed to have some of these conversations with people that I genuinely like and care about, and obviously it didn't really have anything to do with a performance thing. Um, when I told them and I had these conversations, not only was like this felt like this big weight off of my shoulders came off, but all of them were like, "Dude, I totally get it. That makes sense, and I think this is a really smart move." Like, they even felt it. They're like, "That explains this, that, and the other thing that you said over here, or why you were resistant about X." And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, and I can't tell you any with any more clarity until I force change my environment. And I haven't been able to give myself these new constraints that are going to push me to have to figure this out sooner rather than later, right? Because like you said, like the things were in KPI. It wasn't where I wanted to go. Like we weren't growing, we weren't dying. Like we could have kept trying to figure it out, but in my soul, I was like, something is off, and I won't know it until I'm I have to stare at it by myself alone, you know, uh, and that required the environment change, meaning the team goes away, some of the team goes away, and um, certain things fall back on my plate. I'm going to have to re-engineer how I do certain things, and all of that's going to force me to be like, am I doing this because I have to, because I want to? Like little things, like, and I'll stop after this. Like, I had this aha last night. We have this free Facebook group that everyone talks about building free Facebook groups. I despise going in this free Facebook group. And I used to get value from it personally, and every once in a while we'd extract clients from it, but like not. It wasn't the main acquisition vehicle. It was just one other place I had to be. And like last night, I'm like, I think I'm just going to shut the group down because it's not really serving me. And so like, yeah, like I mean, I'm still processing how I'm going to execute that, but I'm pretty close to like, all right, what can I kill? But like, I wouldn't have even had that thought until I'm like, all right, Greg's got to write these emails. Oh crap, Greg's got to post in the Facebook group. Wait, why am I posting in the Facebook group? you know, it's like you get so comfortable doing these things, like you're really mechanical, and it's like, is this even serving me anymore? Um, and so, yeah, I think there's going to be some stuff like that we come across that I'll clean up, hopefully, and just make sure that we get more from less. That's like what I want. I want to get more from less. At some point, we became less leveraged in the pursuit of leverage.
Do you have any regrets about how long it took you to make the decision?
Um, I haven't. I mean, I honestly hadn't thought about that until you just said it. Um, I would say I don't think I regret it. Um, but I will say that I've had two or three instances in life, this being the most recent, where it's been pretty darn clear to me that I took way too long to make this decision. Like in my heart of hearts, I've known it and I've been considering it. and I just delayed actually doing it, but it's been like lingering in the back of my brain, if that makes sense. For example, this very move that I just made, I had said to my number two, Lisa, I said, it was when we started this messaging exercise, which was about an 8-week thing. So call it back to June. Um, Going into June, I said, if we don't see some positive turnaround coming out of this exercise, I'm going to downsize the team come end of September. So I was like forecasting making this move if we didn't see something happen. So like I was even saying, hey, I'm going to give myself until September to make this decision to see if this one last thing that we're doing will convince me that I should keep going with the way we've been doing it. And as we kind of were making our way through, I was like, no, like there's no point. Like I can make this decision now. And I could argue that I probably could have made it a year and a half ago, um, in some way, shape, or form. I don't regret it. I just think that a few mentors of mine and therapists have said, you should even you should just trust your gut more, trust yourself more. Like, and it's like, I have definitely not taken my own advice like I probably should have or trusted in the past. And I think this might have been the one where it's like, all right, next time I have this feeling, I'm going to move like immediately.
I mean, you have to learn to trust your gut.
Oh,
And
yeah,
part of
for
that
sure.
learning process is trusting your gut and then being right. And then having more confidence to trust it again in the future. I would argue, I think it's interesting. I think there's no right or wrong answer. I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
argue if you had made this decision sooner, you might have been second guessing it more as you went through it. Did we make the right decision? Was this the right
Oh, yeah.
move?
Oh, for
You know,
sure.
I think now you're at a place just from our conversation, both, here and offline, where you have a ton of clarity and conviction that nothing's going to really phase you in terms of your next steps. I don't know that you were there a year ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago.
Totally. And back to being like a numbers guy, right? Like we were able to, because we have so much data, to say, well, okay, right now we spend X dollars to get Y clients. Um, but it takes X dollar, or it takes, Z expenses to make that happen. If Z expenses decreased by, a certain percentage, how many clients do we need to get a month to kind of keep this thing running? And like, what does that look like from an overhead perspective and our budget and profit? And it's like, oh, wow, like instantaneously, we're way more profitable. Like, we'd have to lose like 30 clients to like we'd have to lose more than half of our entire client base, which we haven't changed anything on the fulfillment side, really. Like, they have all the same support. Like, we'd have to lose more than half of our clients to offset the savings that we just got from reducing ad spend and the team/commissions that we're no longer going to be paying. And it's like, I'm pretty confident I can continue to enroll a handful of clients every single month to even offset any sort of churn. And if we can stay within this wheelhouse of revenue, we're fine. And I think, like you said, the now whatever years of doing this, I also just have the confidence of, oh, now looking at these numbers, me pulling in that many clients, like I'm capable of that. And I don't second guess my skill set or ability to do that at all. And so that's where it was like, okay, like mitigate the risk, look at the downside. Can I live with the downside? Totally can live with the downside. But the upside of what's on the other side of this is like so high that I'm like, I have to go. I have to make this move. Um,
I think what we're making the argument here for, and I didn't know that was the argument at the beginning of the episode.
mm,
It's becoming clear to me, though, is slower, more thoughtful decision making and not rushing decisions in the interest of speed, which I think is very much counter to what
Mhm.
a lot of, entrepreneurship business advice, lore, wisdom would have you believe, right? Like it's all about speed, money like speed, stuff like that, right? Make decisions
Yeah.
quickly. And that, probably is true in a certain context. When you're running a 7-figure business, I think it's
Mhm.
dangerous. And I think you captured my sentiment. We've got lots of things in front of us. We've got lots of decisions. Some of them can be made quickly, but a lot of them I'm just not sure about.
Yeah.
Just before this, we had a meeting. We had to make some decisions. We looked at a lot of data. At the end of the meeting, the honest answer is, I don't know yet. I could make it up in the interest of making a decision and be categorically wrong, or I can sit on it and wait, look at some more data, think it through, get clarity in other ways. Right. And
Yeah.
I think the thing that folks struggle with at this level is, especially if they're used to being like the fast decision making entrepreneur, which is what got us here to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
Those same rash decisions all of a sudden can become very costly,
Mm.
right? Because if you go down the wrong path here, or if you shut something down that was working, which you ultimately did, but if you did that in a kind of very rash way and you were wrong, that would have been a very expensive decision.
And I could argue that sitting on the decision is equally as dangerous. However, when I have the data and you have the data, and to see that, hey, it's not like we're drowning, we're not going to die. I have room to think about this a little bit more, see how I feel, some of the non-quantitative data. Now that we're having this discussion, I can start playing out some hypotheticals. Like, having it gives us the confidence that, like, hey, I can sit on it a little bit longer. I think some people might not have that, and
Yeah.
delaying, like, and if you had it, you might also see, oh shit, I need to make this decision now, like, because we can't afford to let this go longer. And
Well,
so I think there's, like, having the data is super critical to being empowered to make that move.
I think that really characterizes the position that I find myself in. We're not bleeding
Mhm.
and you weren't bleeding. Like things were okay, not as good as you wanted them to be, but you weren't dying either. When you're bleeding and things are really, really bad, yeah, make some quick decisions, right? Because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got to
yeah.
stop the bleeding. You can't afford to sit on it. But when things are kind of like, no, they're okay, like status quo, right? That's a very different position to be in. It's challenging in many respects because you don't know what you might disrupt that is working right now that might make things worse. And I
Yeah,
think that's cause for pause and time and patience and consideration and thoughtfulness, not speed.
totally. Is there any sort of uh insight into what you're thinking, like what this decision could lead to for you? Like, you have a ton of data,
Um,
things are going fine. Like, what are you waiting to see? What are you hoping
yeah,
to
for
potentially
for us, the
change?
decisions are less dramatic than your decision. It's more about choosing where to focus and what to solve for next and where to make improvements. When
Mhm.
everything is, I wouldn't say going fantastically well, but everything is okay. And there's no obvious, bleeding neck problem. Now,
Mhm.
where do you choose to put your focus? You can't do everything. You've still got to choose. You still got to
Right.
focus, but it's less obvious where.
Totally. Got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you talked about sometimes you have to slow down to speed up. The famous philosopher Mark Wahlberg once said in Shooter, great movie by the way, underrated. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. You know, um, and I found I was on I was on Instagram. I forget where it was. Someone was talking the other day on social around. Um, I think the damage that comes from trying to move so fast, and in our, like, online training consulting world, like, I think we expect growth to be way faster. Like, when you look at normal businesses, normal other industries, 20% year over year growth is considered hyper growth. 20% is considered hyper growth. And in this online consulting, coaching, training world, it's like people are trying to more than double every year, which is like hyper growth, right? And I think some of the folks that we've chatted about on previous episodes, not like by name, but like, you see some of these people like blow up and then disappear. Like that's kind of the byproduct of trying to do things too fast, that like you break tons of stuff and there's tons of damage behind you that's sometimes irreplaceable. And it's like, man, if you just had 10 to 20% year over year growth, like where you would be 10 years from now, like amazing. Yet in our world, you could be like laughed out of a room because it's not fast enough. It's like, it's kind of interesting how like you find yourself in those circles.
Slow and steady. That's my game.
Yeah. In this conversation, do you feel like you have a few specific things that maybe new lenses that you're going to take to your situation to kind of move your decision forward or move your process forward?
Yeah. Don't rush anything. Ask a lot of questions. Seek to understand before making a decision.
Boom. All right, y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Do not post and repost photos of my pink eye. And we'll see you in the next one.